The night began with a silence that felt heavier than usual, the kind that presses against the walls and makes a house feel too small. On Maplewood Lane, silence was normal, but this one carried a strange energy, like something was about to change. Emily Carter stood by the living room window, watching porch lights flicker on across the street, unaware that this quiet suburban evening would soon turn into the most unforgettable night of her life. Emily and her husband, Daniel, had moved to the Seattle suburbs, chasing stability. New jobs, a bigger house, a quieter life. From the outside, they looked like the perfect American couple, steady, polite, and settled. But inside the house, something was missing. Their conversations had become practical. Their laughter rare. Love was still there, but it rested quietly, like a song no one played anymore. That evening, Emily had put on soft music, hoping it would break the stillness. Daniel was on the couch scrolling through his phone, half present. Dinner dishes were stacked in the sink, forgotten. The clock ticked loudly, marking time neither of them knew how to fill. Then came the knock. It wasn't loud or demanding. Just 3 gentle taps on the door. Emily froze. Daniel looked up, surprised. Visitors were rare. Friends didn't just stop by anymore, not here, not unannounced. Daniel stood and walked to the door, his steps slow, curious. When he opened it, the porch light revealed a couple Emily recognized instantly. Mark and Olivia Reynolds. Their neighbors from 2 houses down. Mid-30s, friendly but reserved. They waved often but had never spoken more than a few words. Mark held a bottle of red wine, like a peace offering. Olivia smiled warmly, though her eyes carried a hint of nervousness. "Hi," Mark said. "Sorry to bother you so late. We heard music and thought maybe this was a good time to finally introduce ourselves." Emily felt something shift inside her. An unexpected spark of relief. "Please," she said, stepping forward. "Come in." The door closed behind them, and with it the quiet Emily had grown used to. Coats were placed on chairs. Wine was opened. Glasses clinked softly. The living room, once dull and still, began to breathe. Conversation flowed faster than Emily expected. Mark talked about his work in urban planning, his voice calm but passionate. Olivia spoke about leaving Toronto for a quieter life. How strange it felt to start over in a place where no one knew her story. Daniel shared jokes Emily hadn't heard in months. She watched him come alive, smiling more freely, speaking with his hands like he used to. Emily found herself laughing too. Real laughter. The kind that surprised her as it escaped as the night moved on. The talk shifted naturally from jobs to memories, from memories to regrets. There was no rush, no awkward pauses, just for people discovering how easy it could be to feel understood. Olivia mentioned how loneliness could exist even in a full house. Mark admitted he sometimes felt invisible in his own marriage, not unloved, just unseen. Daniel listened closely, nodding in quiet agreement. Emily felt her chest tighten. The words felt too close to home. They weren't sharing secrets meant to stay hidden. They were sharing truths that needed air. Outside, the street was dark and still. Inside, the room glowed with warmth and flickering light. Time slipped by unnoticed. Emily realized something then. This wasn't just a friendly visit. It felt like a doorway opening, a chance to step outside the small emotional box she'd been living in. Mark refilled glasses. Olivia sat closer, her voice softer now. Daniel leaned back, relaxed in a way Emily hadn't seen since before the move. "Funny," Olivia said quietly, "how we live so close to each other and still feel like strangers." No one disagreed. There was a moment, brief but powerful, where silence returned. But this time it wasn't empty. It was full of understanding. Emily looked at Daniel. Their eyes met. In that look was a shared realization. This night mattered. Eventually, Mark checked the time and stood up. "We should let you get back to your evening," he said, though his tone suggested he didn't really want to leave. Emily felt a strange disappointment. Before stepping out, Olivia turned back. "Maybe we could do dinner sometime, if you'd like." Daniel smiled. "We'd like that." The door closed. The house grew quiet again, but not the same quiet as before. This one buzzed with thoughts, feelings, questions. Emily and Daniel cleaned up in silence. Then they went to bed, lights off, eyes open. "Did you feel it?" Emily finally asked, staring at the ceiling. Daniel exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I did." They didn't need to explain. The night had stirred something deep, something emotional, not physical. A reminder of connection, of being seen. Outside, Maplewood Lane slept peacefully, unaware that 4 lives had subtly shifted. No lines were crossed, no promises broken, but something had begun, and none of them yet understood where it would lead. The evening air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of autumn leaves and rain-soaked pavement. Emily Carter could feel it before she even opened her front door. A restlessness, an anticipation, like the world outside had shifted while she slept. The week since Mark and Olivia Reynolds' first visit had been strange and quiet, almost to normal. Life had returned to routines, but a subtle tension lingered. A thread connecting her and Daniel to the neighbors' warmth and laughter. And tonight, that thread was about to pull them all closer again. When the doorbell rang, Emily felt a jolt of excitement mixed with nervousness. She hadn't realized how much she was looking forward to seeing them again. Daniel stood beside her, adjusting his sweater, his hands slightly shaky. They exchanged a glance that said everything. They were ready, even if they didn't fully know for what. Mark and Olivia appeared on the porch carrying containers of food this time, smiling with the kind of ease that comes from familiarity but still held a hint of vulnerability. "Hope we're not intruding again," Olivia said, her voice light but sincere. "We thought we could make it dinner casual." "Please come in," Emily replied, stepping aside. Daniel held the door and welcomed them with a warmth that had been missing in their house for months. Inside, the atmosphere was immediately alive. The kitchen table, now set with plates and candles, became the center of stories, laughter, and the kind of easy conversation that doesn't feel forced. Emily noticed Daniel leaning in toward Mark, and he shared a story about his first apartment and the mistakes he made with his first tenants. There was a comfort in his listening, a curiosity that Emily hadn't seen in a while. Emily found herself drawn to Olivia, her openness inviting Emily to speak more freely than she had in months. They talked about small things, favorite movies, childhood memories, but beneath the surface ran a current of honesty, the kind that reveals more than just facts. Emily shared a story about a college friendship that had ended badly, and Olivia nodded with understanding, not judgment. The conversation flowed naturally, laughter punctuating the air, yet with moments of stillness that carried weight. As dinner ended, the group moved to the living room. Candles flickered softly, casting shadows on the walls, painting the room in warm tones. Outside, the night was dark and quiet, but inside, emotions moved like unseen currents. Mark talked about feeling overlooked at work, the exhaustion of maintaining appearances, and Daniel responded not with solutions, but with acknowledgement. Emily realized then how deeply Daniel could listen when he truly wanted to. And she felt a spark of pride mixed with nostalgia for the man she first loved. Olivia leaned closer, sharing a story about leaving behind friends she thought she'd have forever. Emily felt tears threaten, not from sadness, but from recognition. They were sharing more than food. They were sharing pieces of their lives, fragments of themselves usually hidden from the world. The night wasn't romantic in a physical sense, but it was intimate in a way that stirred hearts. It was about connection, understanding, and the kind of trust that doesn't need grand gestures to be felt deeply. At one point, the lights flickered and the power went out. A momentary blackout enveloped them in darkness. Candles became their only source of light, and suddenly the house felt smaller, cozier, and more personal. Shadows danced on the walls, and their conversations grew softer, almost confessional. Mark spoke about fears he rarely admitted to anyone, and Olivia shared insecurities she had hidden behind smiles. Emily felt a lump in her throat as she listened, realizing how rare and precious such vulnerability was. Daniel's hand brushed against hers as he passed a candle, and the contact was brief but grounding. They both knew what it meant. They were present for each other, holding space for feelings that didn't need words. Emily felt a warmth spread through her. A quiet reassurance that despite the emotional closeness forming between them and their neighbors, their bond remained intact. Hours passed unnoticed. Stories turned into reflections, laughter into thoughtful silence. And every shared moment deepened the connection between the four of them. Emily watched Daniel engage with Mark, seeing the joy of genuine understanding on his face. She felt herself draw closer to Olivia, recognizing the power of empathy and shared experience. There was no temptation, no misstep, just the magic of human connection in its purest form. When the evening drew to a close, the neighbors stood to leave. Goodbyes were soft, lingering, a mixture of gratitude and the unspoken acknowledgement that this night had changed them all. "Thank you for tonight," Olivia said quietly, her eyes meeting Emily's. "It meant more than I can say." Emily smiled, a quiet, heartfelt smile. "It was perfect. We should do this again soon." Mark and Olivia nodded, stepping out into the night. The door closed behind them, and Emily leaned against it, exhaling. Daniel wrapped an arm around her, and she felt a wave of contentment wash over her. There was no drama, no rush, no crossing of boundaries, just the beauty of connection. It's grown gently, intentionally, and respectfully. That night, in the quiet after their neighbors had gone, Emily and Daniel talked. They didn't need to resolve everything or define the depth of what had happened. They only needed to acknowledge it. They spoke about boundaries, trust, and the importance of maintaining the balance between openness and closeness. Their words were honest, sometimes hesitant, but always rooted in respect. Emily realized that what they had shared with Mark and Olivia was a lesson in intimacy. That didn't rely on romance or physical attraction. It was about being truly seen and understood. She reflected on how rare it was to feel this kind of emotional presence in modern life, where everyone moves fast and talks even faster, yet few truly listen. The weeks that followed were calmer but richer. They continued to see Mark and Olivia, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for walks in the nearby park. Each meeting was light, yet meaningful. They didn't need grand gestures or late-night confessions. The beauty was in the simplicity, the shared moments, the laughter, and the unspoken understanding that they had all touched something important in each other's lives. Eventually, Mark and Olivia had to move for work, and the farewell was bittersweet. There was no drama, no lingering heartbreak, only gratitude for what had been experienced together. Emily and Daniel watched their car disappear down Maplewood Lane, and for the first time in months, the house felt both quiet and full. Quiet because the neighbors were gone, full because their own hearts felt revived, renewed by connection and emotional honesty. Emily sat by the window later that evening, staring at the street they had come to love. She felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that the night they had let their neighbors join them had been about more than just company. It had been about rediscovering themselves, their marriage, and the quiet joy of meaningful human connection. Daniel joined her, holding her hand, and together they watched the lights flicker across the street. The neighborhood returned to its usual stillness, but Emily and Daniel were no longer the same. They had learned that love and closeness don't always come from grand gestures or romantic entanglements. Sometimes they come from laughter, shared stories, understanding nods, and the simple courage to open the door to others. And as they closed their eyes that night, Emily realized that the night they let the neighbors join them had quietly changed everything. They had rediscovered intimacy, trust, and the warmth of being truly seen. And that was enough to light their lives for a long time to come.